After making this sugar egg for Easter this year, several of you have asked how to do this. So I thought I would make a video teaching you how you can make your own Easter sugar egg. So for each egg, you're going to need 2 tablespoons of water and some food coloring, probably 1 to 3 drops per egg, and then 2 cups of sugar. And 1 egg would be 2 halves. And then I use these plastic molds. I bought my kids some Easter candy years ago, and inside each of these bigger eggs they had little packages of candy. So I've just kept these for this particular purpose. And one thing I like about it is it has a flat bottom, whether you're setting it horizontal or vertically. So let's go ahead and get started. You need to decide how many colors you want and how many eggs you're going to do. So for each egg, let's go ahead and get our water and place them into our bowls, and then we will add the food coloring to the drops of water. So I've got my 2 tablespoons. I'm going to go ahead and add that in. And now for the food coloring, probably 1 to 3 drops. You might want a little bit more depending on how vibrant you want the color to be, and then just stir that into the water. It's better to do the food coloring to the water before adding the sugar. And then after you do that, you'll add 2 cups of sugar to your colored water. Give it a good stir. It's going to feel like wet sand or packed snow, but you want to just mix it as well as you can until the color is evenly distributed and you don't really have any hard clumps of sugar. Everything is just nice, soft, and fluffy, again, like wet sand. And you can even decide to not use any food coloring and have a white egg if you would like to do that. You can mix and match colors when you are putting the colors into the eggs, and I'm going to show you how to do that with one of mine. So now we're going to start by filling the base, and I usually just pack it all the way full, and then I kind of start scraping the middle section out, and I'll show you how I do that. But you're just going to want to pack it in kind of like when you were a kid and you were making a sandcastle. Now once you have it packed in, I like to sort of score where I'm going to have my edge, and that way it sort of creates a little predetermined section of where I'm going to start hollowing out the middle. And we're not going to go all the way down to the bottom, to the plastic, but we want to make a nice even thickness all the way around. And I tend to make my bottom a little bit thicker than the top just to kind of help make it sturdy. And then once you've got it filled in and hollowed out, you just place your board on the top and turn it over and give it a gentle shake, and then just sort of shimmy it off carefully. If you find that it was too thin and collapsed, no big deal, start over. It's very forgiving. So now I'm going to set this aside so it will dry. You want to have these dry for at least 24 hours. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other half of the egg, and you can use the top half of the egg. You'll notice it's a little bit, if you're using the kind of molds I am, it's a little bit flimsier, but I'm actually going to use this bottom one and make 2 bottoms because I'm going to use this base to cut out to make a peekaboo hole, and I'll show you how I'm doing that here. I'm just using that as a guide to determine how to cut that out. You can kind of see the lines that I'm talking about, and so I'm just using that as a guide to know where to how far to take my spoon. Okay, so now it's time to test it out and see if it works. This one you want to be very careful with. It is thinner. And again, we're just going to gently shimmy off the top. And if it's collapsed, we'll just put the sugar back in and start over. Okay, we did it. So now I'm going to show you how I make a striped sugar egg. So I'm going to use 2 different colors, And this one, I'm going to make the peekaboo hole at the pointed end. And that's because instead of standing up, this egg will be horizontal. So you can kind of see I'm just doing kind of one stripe at a time. These are very rough stripes. Again, I'm not a professional decorator. This is very amateur and it looks very amateur, but I'm just kind of putting a little at a time and packing them in. And then just like before, I'm going to sort of score my edges here. But then in the tip where the point meets, that is where I'm going to start my peekaboo cutaway. So I'm just going to kind of gently stick my spoon in here and decide, you know, how far back I want to go, and just start cutting away. And then I'm going to try to match that same thickness and the same distance of where I'm going to cut away. And I'm just adding both colors to a bowl. I will just make a speckled egg later with the purple and blue, so I'm not too worried about these mixing after, you know, I have it packed in and now that I'm starting to scrape away. I suppose there could be a meticulous way of doing this to keep the colors separated, but I'm not going to worry about that. And I think a speckled egg will be cute. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish hollowing these out and continuing to pack where the cutaway will be. And then we will go ahead and put those on the boards to dry just as we have with the other ones. So I think I'm done. I'm checking. It looks like they're about the same. So I'm going to go ahead and let those dry on the boards as well. So now that I have my eggs done, they're going to dry for 24 hours. Okay, so more than 24 hours have passed and now I'm ready to assemble all of my sugar eggs. You'll see that I can handle them. They are ready to go. They're still, you know, you don't want to throw them around or anything. They're still fragile. I've got some candy I'm going to fill and some totes I'm going to use for storage. And then I have made a batch of the royal icing. You can use pretty much any type of piping bag that you have. I went ahead and assembled one of the eggs early just so I can show you. This one, you know, I like this. It's the one that has the peephole that I cut out from the front, and you can see I put a little Jesus in there with a little lily. It's kind of like a little diorama. And I'm showing this to you because I don't want you to think that you have to be an expert decorator. I don't really know how to pipe things, so I'm using candy barrels. You know, I just kind of put blobs on with my, you know, piping bag, and then just used the confection flowers that I bought in the cake decorating section at the store, and filled it with little Jesus. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to first of all fill the piping bag with my royal icing, and this is the tip that I'm going to be using to pipe the edges. And then for just gluing them together, I'm just going to use a simple round opening. Sometimes I also use this little mechanism. You just fill the frosting in and then you use this trigger to pump the frosting down, and sometimes I like this. It's a little bit easier on my hands. So maybe I'll try that for one of them and show you how it works. Before you assemble your egg, make sure that your hands are completely dry because this was made with sugar and water. So if your hands are wet, it will dissolve the sugar and it will fall apart. So I'm just going to start by piping an edge of the frosting around the edge of this egg. And then we're just going to let this set aside until it hardens, and then we will pipe the edges. So while that's setting, we are going to go ahead and do the rest of them. I'm noticing that because of the humidity, it seems like this frosting is a little bit droopy, so I'm going to go ahead and scrape some of this away. It will still harden, but I am going to add some more powdered sugar before I do the decorative piping. So toothpicks or spoons or something to kind of wipe away the excess will be your friend. Okay, I've got my piping bag ready and I'm ready to do the last two halves, which I'm not putting together. I'm actually making candy dishes, so you'll notice here that these two pieces have the flat bottom, and that's because I used the bottom molds for both of these pieces. So you'll notice when I go around the edges, I sometimes will do this back and forth just because I think it looks nice and it's pretty easy to do without messing it up too bad. And also I can make the width as thick as I want. So even if the top egg half is not as thick as the bottom egg half, the frosting can sort of hide that. So that's what I'm doing right now, is sort of just camouflaging all of my mistakes with this decorative piping on the outside. And then this is where a toothpick can come in handy. I can go in and I can clean up any of my little mistakes that I've made, or the parts I don't like, or if I've really messed up, I can just scrape the whole thing off and start again. Okay, so now they have dried for 24 hours and they are ready for me to package up and deliver to some special people. So we've got, just a recap here, we've got Mr. and Mrs. Peep here, peeping out through the peephole. I just think this is super cute. And then I've made one with another little Jesus, because who doesn't need a little Jesus in their lives? And this one I just kept really simple, just because I feel like it's white. It sort of has that purity feeling that I wanted to have with the one with Jesus. And I love this little bunny one. He's so cute. Loved how the stripes turned out. And then we have our two little candy dishes ready to fill with candy. And now they are packed up and ready for transport. Good luck in making your own eggs.